Love in Zero Gravity. The first time Dr. Celeste Aurora saw Kale dissolve, she thought it was a hallucination brought on by 3 consecutive night shifts in the medical bay of Station Prometheus. She'd been cataloging tissue samples from the latest supply run when the door hissed open. Without looking up, she called out, "If you're bleeding, take a number. If you're dying, interrupt me. Otherwise, come back during regular hours." "I do not bleed," said a voice that sounded like wind chimes dancing in a meteor shower. Sarah's head snapped up. Standing in her doorway was a being unlike anything she'd encountered in her 7 years aboard the station. Humanoid, yes, but composed of what appeared to be living crystal, translucent layers that shifted between azure and violet, refracting the harsh fluorescent lights into rainbow cascades across her walls. "You're the Kelvari researcher," she managed, setting down her specimen tray with hands that suddenly felt clumsy. "Kale, right? From the cultural exchange program?" "I am." The being moved closer, and Sarah noticed that his movements created faint musical tones, as if the very air sang in his presence. "Dr. Aurora, your Commander Reeves has signed me to work with you. I am here to study human emotional responses." Sarah's head snapped up. Standing in her doorway was a being unlike anything she'd encountered in her 7 years aboard the station. Humanoid, yes, but composed of what appeared to be living crystal, translucent layers that shifted between azure and violet, refracting the harsh fluorescent lights into rainbow cascades across her walls. "You're the Kelvari researcher," she managed, setting down her specimen tray with hands that suddenly felt clumsy. "Kale, right? From the cultural exchange program?" "I am." The being moved closer, and Sarah noticed that his movements created faint musical tones, as if the very air sang in his presence. "Dr. Aurora, your Commander Reeves has signed me to work with you. I am here to study human emotional responses." Sarah felt her stomach drop. She'd heard about the Kelvari delegation, but had assumed they'd be working with the psychology department, not with a simple medical researcher like herself. "I think there's been a mistake. I'm just a physician. I study bodies, not emotions." "Your file indicates otherwise." Kale tilted his head, and the crystalline planes of his face caught the light differently, creating the impression of a smile, though he had no conventional features. "You published 17 papers on the neurochemistry of human bonding. You investigate how the body creates what you call feelings." He wasn't wrong. Sarah had spent her career studying oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, the chemical cocktails that humans mistook for the mysteries of the heart. "That's biochemistry, not psychology." "To my people, there is no difference. Emotion is merely another physical process." Kale moved to her workstation, examining her equipment with evident curiosity. "This is why I chose to work with you specifically. Your research suggests you understand this truth." Sarah should have corrected him then, should have explained that while she'd built her career on reducing feelings to formulas, she'd never quite believed her own research. That she'd become a scientist because understanding the mechanics of love seemed safer than experiencing it. That 3 failed relationships and 1 spectacularly painful divorce had taught her that knowing how emotions worked didn't make them any less capable of destroying you. Instead, she asked, "What exactly does studying human emotions involve?" "Observation, analysis, comprehension." Kale turned toward her, and for the first time Sarah noticed his eyes, if they could be called eyes, deeper pools of color within the crystalline structure, shifting like oil on water. "You must witness my emotional responses to various stimuli over an extended period. Commander Reeves has arranged for us to share this laboratory and adjoining living quarters for the duration of my research." "Share living quarters?" Sarah's voice came out higher than intended. That's highly irregular. Your species' pair bonding behaviors are most evident in cohabitation scenarios. I cannot study human emotional patterns without proximity. Sarah wanted to object. She'd specifically requested solo quarters when she'd signed on for this 3-year rotation. The whole point of coming to Prometheus Station had been to escape Earth, escape relationships, escape the constant pressure to be vulnerable with another person. And now they were assigning her an alien roommate who wanted to study her feelings like they were an experiment. But Commander Reeves didn't make mistakes with personnel assignments, and Sarah had learned long ago that arguing with station administrators was futile. Fine, but I have rules. No observations during sleep, no questions about my past, and absolutely no commentary on my emotional state unless I explicitly ask for it. Acceptable. Kale extended what might have been a hand, a crystalline appendage that branched into delicate finger-like structures. Shall we seal this agreement with your custom of physical contact? Sarah hesitated, then reached out to shake his hand. The moment their skin, or whatever substance composed his form, touched, she gasped. It wasn't cold or hot, hard or soft. It was like touching living starlight, a sensation that bypassed her nerve endings and resonated directly in her chest. She pulled back quickly. What was that? What was what? Kale seemed genuinely confused. That feeling, when I touched you. I experienced nothing unusual. Perhaps it is a human physiological response to contact with Kelvari biocrystalline structures. He made a note on a device that materialized from within his form. Interesting. This will be valuable data. Sarah rubbed her hand, still feeling phantom tingles. This was going to be a very long assignment.
The first week passed in uncomfortable adjustment. Kayal proved to be an exhausting roommate, not because he was messy or noisy, he was neither, but because he watched everything. When Sarah made coffee, he observed. When she read before bed, he took notes. When she video called her sister on Earth, he analyzed her vocal patterns and facial expressions. Your heart rate increases 12% when you speak to your sibling, he commented after one such call. Your speech becomes 23% faster, and your smile engages different muscle groups than during professional interactions. This indicates a positive emotional bond. That indicates that I love my sister, Sarah said dryly. You didn't need biometric readings to figure that out. But what is this love? Kayal moved closer, his crystalline form refracting the blue glow of her computer screen. Your sister is on Earth. You are here. You cannot touch her, provide for her physical needs, or offer practical assistance. Yet the connection persists. How? Sarah closed her laptop, considering the question. Love isn't about proximity or practical benefit. It's about connection. Caring about someone's well-being even when it doesn't serve you. Wanting them to be happy even if you're not there to see it. This makes no evolutionary sense. Most of the best human traits don't. Evolution optimized us for survival, not happiness. Love is inefficient, often painful, and completely irrational. But it's also what makes us more than just sophisticated biological machines. Kayal was silent for a long moment. Then, my people do not have this. We have partnerships based on compatible research goals. We have cooperation for mutual benefit. But this caring without purpose, this connection without logic, it is alien to us. Is that why you're here? To understand what you don't have? I am here because my people are dying, not in body, but in spirit. We have become so efficient, so logical,
that we no longer know why we persist. Birth rates decline, suicide rates rise. We are a civilization perfecting itself into extinction. Sarah felt something shift in her chest. Sympathy, recognition, the uncomfortable kinship of someone who'd spent years running from the same kind of emptiness. And you think studying human emotions will help? I think if I can understand how your species maintains meaning in a meaningless universe, perhaps my people can learn the same. KL's form dimmed slightly, a change Sarah was beginning to recognize as sadness, or exhaustion, or something close to both. But I begin to suspect that understanding and experiencing are not the same thing. That night, Sarah lay awake in her quarters, thinking about Kayal's words. Through the thin walls, she could hear the faint musical tones of his presence, a sound like distant stars singing. She wondered what it would be like to be so logical that you engineered away the capacity for love, only to discover too late that love was the only thing keeping you alive. She wondered if maybe she'd been trying to do the same thing. The incident occurred on day 23 of their cohabitation. Sarah had been analyzing blood samples when one of the containment fields failed, sending specimens flying across the lab in the station's low gravity. She swore, pushing off from her workstation to catch the floating vials before they contaminated the entire room. Kayal moved faster, his crystalline form blurring with unhuman speed as he intercepted each sample, his finger-like appendages delicately plucking them from the air. In seconds, he'd collected them all, arranging them carefully on the workbench. "Thank you," Sarah said, slightly breathless. That would have been a nightmare to clean up. It was no... Kayal stopped mid-sentence. His form began to shimmer, the edges of his crystalline structure becoming translucent, almost gaseous. "Kayal, what's wrong?" Sarah moved toward him, alarmed. "Stay back." His voice came strained, musical notes now discordant. "I am experiencing. I do not know what I am experiencing. You're dissolving." Sarah could see it now, his solid form losing coherence, becoming more vapor than crystal. "What's happening? Is this a medical emergency?" "Not medical, emotional." Kayal seemed to be fighting to maintain solidity, his form flickering between states. "I felt something when you expressed gratitude, a sensation in what you would call my chest, warmth, expansion, desire for your continued well-being. You're feeling emotion, real emotion, not just studying it." "Yes, and it is destroying me." Kayal's form continued to destabilize. "My people, we eliminated the capacity for strong emotions generations ago, but in doing so, we created a genetic weakness. When a Kelvari experiences genuine emotional response, our biocrystalline matrix cannot maintain cohesion. We literally fall apart." "Can you stop it? Control it somehow?" "I am trying, but the more I attempt to suppress the feeling, the stronger it becomes. This is why we fear emotions. They are a virus to us, a disease without cure."
Sarah watched, helpless, as the being she'd spent nearly a month with threatened to dissolve entirely. And in that moment, she felt it too. Fear, panic, and underneath it all, something she'd been avoiding acknowledging. She cared about him. In 3 weeks, this strange crystalline alien had become more than a research assignment, more than a roommate. He'd become a friend, and maybe something beyond friendship. "Then don't suppress it," she said suddenly. "Humans deal with emotions by feeling them, processing them, letting them move through us instead of fighting them. But I will destabilize. Or maybe you'll stabilize differently." Sarah moved closer, ignoring his earlier warning. "You came here to learn about emotions, right? Then learn this. Fighting what you feel only makes it worse. You have to let yourself experience it." "I am afraid."
The admission made his form flicker more violently. I do not want to cease existing. I know. I am afraid too. Sarah reached out slowly, offering her hand. But you don't have to do this alone. Kale's form pulsed, wavering between coherence and dissolution. Then, carefully, he extended his crystalline appendage and took her hand. The sensation was overwhelming. That same starlight touch from their first meeting, but amplified 1,000-fold. Sarah felt warmth bloom in her chest, spreading through her body like sunlight breaking through clouds. She could sense Kale's fear, his wonder, his desperate attempt to hold himself together against the tide of new sensation. Without thinking, she did something that would later seem either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. She stepped closer and wrapped her arms around his crystalline form in an embrace. "What are you doing?" Kale's voice came very small. "Something humans do when they care about each other. It's called a hug." I could feel him stabilizing against her, his form solidifying where they touched. Sometimes physical contact helps us process overwhelming emotions. Maybe it works for Kelvari too. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, carefully, Kale's appendages came up to return the embrace. His crystalline structure stopped flickering, began to glow with a steady, soft light. "I am not dissolving," he said, wonder in his voice. "No, you're not. I still feel the emotion, but it no longer destroys me." "That's how it works," Sarah said softly. "Emotions don't have to destroy you. Sometimes if you let someone else help you carry them, they become bearable, beautiful even." They stood there in the zero gravity of the lab, holding each other, two beings from different worlds learning the same lesson, that connection was the opposite of dissolution, that sharing vulnerability didn't weaken you, it made you whole. When they finally pulled apart, Kale's form had changed. He was still crystalline, still alien, but his structure seemed more stable, more vibrant. Colors swirled within him that Sarah hadn't seen before, warm golds mixing with the blues and violets. "I am changed," he said quietly. "We both are," Sarah agreed. The weeks that followed were a study in careful navigation. Kale had to learn to manage his newfound emotional capacity, avoiding situations that triggered strong responses until he'd built up tolerance. Sarah discovered that the feelings she'd been avoiding weren't actually dangerous, just uncomfortable, like muscles sore from disuse.
They developed routines. Morning coffee became morning tea and questions, where Cal would ask about human emotional experiences and Sarah would try to explain feelings she'd spent years refusing to examine. Evening work sessions turned into conversations about Kelvari culture, about the slow death of a civilization that had optimized away its own heart. "We were not always this way," Cal told her one night as they floated near the observation window, watching stars wheel past. Thousands of years ago, Kelvari felt as deeply as humans, but emotions led to conflicts, wars, suffering. So our scientists found ways to diminish them, generation by generation. We thought we were evolving toward peace. Instead, you evolved toward emptiness, Sarah said. Yes, by the time we realized our mistake, it was too late. The genetic changes were permanent. Any Kelvari who experiences strong emotions now faces what I faced, dissolution, death. His form dimmed. There are only a few million of us left. In another century, there may be none. Is that why you're really here? Not just to study emotions, but to find a cure? Perhaps. Or perhaps I am simply one more Kelvari, seeking something we lost, knowing I can never reclaim it without destroying myself. He turned toward her, and Sarah saw something new in those oil shimmer eyes. Longing. Until you held me, until you showed me that emotions need not destroy if they are shared. Cal, Sarah's voice caught. She knew what he was suggesting, what they'd both been avoiding acknowledging. I'm human. You're Kelvari. Even if you can manage your emotions now, we're too different. Whatever this is between us, it can't work. Why not? Because I'll age and you won't. Because you'll eventually have to return to your people. Because I've already failed at relationships with my own species. I can't imagine trying to make one work across the gulf of stars. The words came fast, defensive. All the rational reasons she'd been stockpiling against this exact moment. I see. Cal's form contracted slightly, colors muting. You are afraid. Of course I'm afraid. Sarah pushed away from the window, floating in the center of the room. You almost dissolved because you felt grateful. What happens if you feel more? What happens if... She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. If I feel what you feel. Cal moved closer, weightless and graceful. You think I do not know. I have studied you for weeks, Sarah Chen. I have analyzed your heart rate variability, your hormone levels, your neural patterns. By every measurable metric, you are experiencing what humans call romantic attraction toward me. Sarah's cheeks burned. That's not... You can't just... I can, because it is scientifically observable. Your pupils dilate when you see me. Your stress levels decrease in my presence. You smile 34% more frequently than in your baseline interactions. You are drawn to me and you are terrified of that draw, because the last time you allowed yourself to feel this deeply, someone hurt you. The clinical accuracy of the assessment should have angered her. Instead, it cracked something open in her chest. You're right. My ex-husband, he said I was too cold, too analytical, that I treated our marriage like an experiment instead of a relationship. And maybe he was right. Maybe I'm too broken to love properly. Or perhaps you were with someone who did not understand that there are many ways to love. You show affection through action, not words. You express care through attention to detail, through remembering small preferences, through creating environments where others feel safe. This is not coldness. This is love in a different language. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. Actual tears, something she'd trained herself not to do years ago. You learned all that from studying me? I learned all that from caring for you, Cal corrected gently, which is itself a puzzle. By all logic, I should not risk the feelings that could destroy me, but I find I am willing to dissolve entirely if it means one more conversation with you, one more shared silence, one more moment of understanding what it means to not be alone. That's the most terrifying thing anyone has ever said to me. I know, you are experiencing fear, your heart rate is elevated, your breathing shallow, but you are also experiencing something else. What do humans call it? Hope. Sarah looked at him, really looked, at this crystalline being from a dying world who'd risked his own stability to understand the emotions his people had abandoned, who'd chosen to feel knowing it could kill him, who'd decided that connection mattered more than safety.
She thought about her own choices, how she'd spent years armoring herself against feeling, turning her heart into a laboratory where emotions could be dissected but never truly experienced. How she'd convinced herself that understanding love was the same as having it. How she'd come to Prometheus Station to escape the messy, painful business of being human. And here was Kale, who would give anything to be human enough to feel. I am experiencing hope, she admitted finally, and terror, and something I don't have a name for yet. Perhaps we could discover its name together. Kale's hand finally closed the distance, cupping her face with impossible gentleness. Where he touched, she felt warmth, light, the sensation of stars singing in harmony. I cannot promise this will be easy. I cannot promise I will not hurt you,
or that my biology will not betray us both, but I can promise that I would rather dissolve trying to love you than remain cohesive and alone." Sarah leaned into his touch, feeling the careful way he held her, as if she were precious, fragile, worth the risk of falling apart. "You know that humans can hurt each other without meaning to, that we're complicated and contradictory, and sometimes we push away the things we want most. I know. I have studied this extensively." There was warmth in his voice now, something that might have been humor. "Fortunately, I am a researcher. Complicated phenomena are my specialty." Despite everything, Sarah laughed. Then she reached up and took his hand, floating closer in the zero gravity until there was barely space between them. "Then I suppose we're both going to have to be very brave. Or very foolish. With emotions, those are often the same thing." Cale pulled her closer, and Sarah wrapped her arms around him again, feeling his form stabilize against her as it had that first time. But now there was something more, a resonance, a harmony, as if their different biologies were learning to sing the same song. "I am experiencing multiple emotions simultaneously," Cale murmured against her hair. "Satisfaction, contentment, anticipation, and something that makes my structure vibrate at its core. Is this what humans call happiness?" "I think so." Sarah closed her eyes, letting herself feel, really feel for the first time in years. The fear was still there, but underneath it was something warmer, brighter, something worth the risk. "I'm experiencing it too." They floated there together in the observation lounge, two beings from different worlds, learning that love was the ultimate zero gravity, weightless, disorienting, impossible to navigate alone. But together, perhaps they could learn to fly. The next months were not easy. Cale had episodes where strong emotions threatened his stability, and Sarah had to learn to help him through them without losing herself to panic. Sarah had moments of doubt and self-sabotage, and Cale had to learn that sometimes humans needed space, not solutions. They fought. They misunderstood each other. They hurt each other accidentally, and had to learn the painstaking work of repair and forgiveness. But they also laughed. They discovered that Cale could change his crystalline structure to create different musical tones, and they spent hours composing symphonies together. They found that their different ways of seeing the universe complemented each other, his logic balancing her intuition, her emotional depth giving meaning to his analytical precision. Sarah's research took on new dimensions as she studied the biochemistry of interspecies bonding, documenting how human and Calvari physiologies affected each other. Cale's project expanded as he realized he wasn't just studying human emotions anymore. He was learning to synthesize them with Calvari cognition, creating something entirely new. "I am going to have to return home eventually," Cale said one evening, 6 months into their partnership, "to share what I have learned, to try to teach my people that emotions need not destroy us if we allow others to help us carry them." Sarah's heart clenched, but she nodded. "I know. Come with me." She looked up, startled. "What?" "Come with me to Calvar. Teach my people what you taught me, that vulnerability is not weakness, that connection is worth the risk of dissolution, that love is the opposite of dying." His form glowed brighter, colors swirling with intensity. "I am asking you to bind your life to mine, knowing that I may still dissolve someday, knowing that you will age while I remain unchanged, knowing that we will face challenges neither of us can predict." "That's completely illogical," Sarah said, but she was smiling through tears. "Yes, I have learned that the most important things usually are." Cale pulled her close, their bodies finding harmony in the weightlessness. "Is that a yes?" Sarah thought about the woman who'd come to Prometheus Station, running from feeling, afraid of connection, convinced that the safest way to live was alone. She thought about how Cale had taught her that safety and aliveness were not the same thing, that some risks were worth taking, not despite the fear, but because of it. "Yes," she said. "Yes, you impossible, illogical, beautiful alien. I'll come with you." They kissed then, a careful, exploratory thing, learning how human and Calvari expressions of affection could merge. It tasted like starlight and salt, like the future and the unknown, like two beings who'd been incomplete, learning what it meant to be whole. Outside the observation window, stars wheeled in their ancient dance, indifferent to the small drama of two hearts finding each other across the void. But inside Prometheus Station, in zero gravity, where everything floated free, two beings held tight to each other and discovered that love was the only gravity that mattered. Years later, when Sarah stood before the Calvari Council and explained how physical touch and emotional support could prevent dissolution, when Cale demonstrated his own stability through the depth of his feeling, when they together taught a dying civilization how to feel again without falling apart, they would remember this moment. This first kiss in zero gravity, where everything that mattered was weightless, and the only thing keeping them grounded was each other. Where fear transformed into courage and loneliness dissolved into connection. Where two beings decided that the risk of feeling was infinitely preferable to the safety of emptiness. Where they learned what poets and scientists had always known but could never quite prove, that in the mathematics of the universe, somehow, impossibly, love always added up to more than the sum of its parts. And in the end, perhaps that was the only equation that ever really mattered.